Mysterioso McClellan. Ooh, that's good. That's who you are today.
Well, that one's a pretty good one.
Yeah, I couldn't think of
Uh,
something.
I was thinking you were going to be consistent and use my middle name as well because
I
you
forget
said
it. Is it
yours.
Kent?
Yes, it is Kent. Good job.
Because I remember, when a couple years ago when somebody told me your middle name or something, you seemed really like, oh, that's a secret. Don't tell nobody. So I don't use it.
Everything with me is a secret, Alejandro.
Yeah, that's why you have the name Mysterioso.
Yes.
I like Mysterioso. That's neat. Mysterioso McClellan.
All right, let's see if you can remember it for next week.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I should just stick to one because that makes it easier.
I don't think you could. I think
Yeah,
you like the spontaneity.
you're right. It is fun. And that's what's fun. This is a pre-recorded show. It's not live. But it is kind of live because I don't really edit much. Sometimes I don't edit at all. And and it just makes it easier timing wise with speakers and with you and me because it makes it easier that way. But yeah, that spontaneity, just making it live where we're just kind of off the cuff is a lot of fun, I feel like. Certainly a difference between watching Spacing Out, which is very scripted and news oriented, but this is sillier.
On the fly.
Yeah, yeah, we get silly. All right, Mr. Mysterioso. I guess first I'll tell people about our guest, and then we'll talk some news. First, our guest is Travis Walton, and I think it's only the second time I've had him on the show. I always talk about this, how there's so many people in this field we talk to all the time, and Travis is one we hang out with quite a bit, and um, and I have only had him on the show once before, which is interesting. So he's on the show today, and one of the reasons he's not on the show as much because really nothing changes. I think what shows lends towards his credibility in that he has had one experience, and he talks about that experience, and the story doesn't change. He's consistent, and he doesn't do, Nancy Burns and I talked about this, and I think you'll agree with this, Jason. A lot of people, Ben Hansen calls it legendizing, where they all of a sudden, because oh, what if I'm not popular anymore? They get a taste of the fame, and they're like, oh yeah, I talked to an alien last week even. Yeah, that's the ticket. Where they kind of add these things that aren't real and everything, and I think it lends to Travis's credibility that he just speaks to the one experience. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And yeah, that's big, big kudos to Travis for that. That's
Yeah.
plays really largely into why his case is viewed as one of the most credible.
Yeah. Well, and he doesn't have the big ego too, because another thing he does is he goes to all of the conferences whether or not he speaks. And there are a lot of speakers, and we know this because we run the largest UFO conference, who not only will not come to a conference if they're not speaking, not even to have a table to sell stuff, and to talk to people, but often they also get upset that they're not speaking. A lot of them, not everyone's like that, but a lot of them, and Travis isn't like that at all. In fact, he's always at the Congress whether he speaks or not. So that's kind of lends towards his honesty as well and lack of ego. But Travis, I should tell people, just in a nutshell, just in case you're not aware, I'm sure most of our listeners are, but sometimes we have new people to this field, and that's what's great about having a show like this, where we can get people who don't know much about UFOs and get them into it. But Travis, in 1975, November 5th, him and his buddies, they were working as loggers, and they saw a light in the forest. They went to this light. They thought it was a fire. It was this large silver disc. Travis, being a goofball and a young show-off, gets out to go take a closer look, and this thing beams him. He flies several feet. The other people think he's dead. They freak out and they take off. After a while, they come to their senses and they're like, "We got to go back and get him." They go back. He's gone. They tell the cops, and the cops say, "Oh yeah, you guys probably killed him. You're bastards." Actually, they did a manhunt, but yeah, the cops didn't believe the UFO came and stuff. They thought it was these guys. Luckily, 5 days later, Travis shows up at a fairly nearby phone box, and he's okay. He thought only a few hours had passed when it had been a few days. And over time, he remembers some strange stuff and him actually being on this craft and these weird things that he met there. So, and everybody's taken polygraph tests for the most part. They've all been passed. There were a couple that were kind of shaky at the beginning, but well, there's several different theories as to why that is. However, they've all taken multiple polygraph tests that they've passed, and really interesting case if you're not aware of this. And you can listen to our last radio show with Travis or go to our website and see him talk about his experiences to get more detail. It was documented in the movie Fire in the Sky. However, what happened aboard the craft is totally different in the movie and then goofy in the movie, but much more interesting in what Travis really remembers. So that's kind of his case in a nutshell. We're going to be talking to him about his upcoming conference and a Skywatch he's going to have on November 5th, the 39th anniversary of the event. For the first time, he's going to take people from the public to the location to look for UFOs. Open Minds will be there with cameras. If we all get abducted, then we will catch it on video. What if we don't come back, Jason?
Then, I don't know. Probably not so bad.
You're going to have to continue to do the show and all this Open Mind stuff all by yourself.
That doesn't sound impossible, but it doesn't sound all that fun either. I need you. I can't fill your silly shoes.
Yep, and you're going to have to go do lectures. I know you're kind of afraid of that.
I'm good at lectures.
You are. I think you are.
Well, thank you, friend.
Yeah, in fact, all you conference people out there, Jason, of course, Jason's really into astrobiology and kind of commercial space and stuff like that, but which so am I. It's really cool stuff. But yeah, let's talk some UFO news now.
Just don't disappear. Just have a good time at the event. Don't disappear, and we'll be all right.
Most likely we won't. If we do, it'll be very exciting. But we'll see what happens. Yeah, I'll have luckily. My girlfriend will be with me, so we'll both be together if we get taken. So not so bad.
Yeah, that's not so bad.
Yeah, and her kids won't be with us because we'll be taken. But I don't think she'll mind. They're little brats. They're being little brats right now, so she'll probably like a break to visit space.
She'll give me the address and say, take them.
Yeah. Nah, they're cool kids, but they can't be brats. All right, so let's talk some UFO news. A lot of news in the last week.
Yeah.
What is kind of a story that sticks out for you?
Well, Alejandro, one of the more visually interesting ones from the past week was this UFO in Brazil, this strange object that was shooting through the sky last week, and it kind of exploded and illuminated the sky so much that people there came out of their houses. They saw this big flash that they thought initially was lightning, but it was so bright that it made this nighttime sky as bright as day. Incredibly illuminated the sky, and with a variety of colors. Blue, pink, purple, red, just kind of changing color with this very, very bright light. Now, we have the video on openminds.tv, and when you watch it, if you've ever seen video of like an electrical transformer exploding, you do see something that looks like this. Just crazy explosion, multiple colors, keeps going. And in my opinion, that's what we're seeing in this video, but a lot of people disagree. And there was actually something that was observed flying through the sky. A lot of traffic cameras caught the incident on video. So you can see in like reflections of cars and other things in some of the videos that there was an object flying through the sky. And the Astronomy Society there, they believe that the light show was caused by a meteor falling from a meteor shower. But I think that could, and that's just what they think. They haven't been able to confirm that. But I think that could explain the object that was seen flying through the sky. But this explosion of various colors, I don't know. I'm still of the opinion that I think it was a transformer because that's exactly what a
Mm.
transformer blowing up looks like. And when you watch one of the videos, you can see where the main source of this explosion is going on with all these different colors. If you look to the right, um, sometime during the video, you'll see some other small explosions kind of to the right of it, and you'll see that too with these when these transformers explode. You'll
Hmm.
see that other transformers and things down the line will also explode.
Yeah, we had a story like this a couple years ago. I think it was at San Antonio.
I think that's right.
Yeah, where a similar thing happened, and I think it was this neighborhood where it was some kind of chain reaction or something, where they were blowing, and it was an incredible video, really cool. Where yeah, these transformers start blowing, and really wild because they're extremely bright.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really bizarre to watch. And why is this a news story if it's most likely a transformer? Well, the people there don't believe that's what it was. The reports say that it was not. Um, you'd have to contact the local power departments and stuff. And even with the one in San Antonio, they never got confirmation. Well, they did, but initially, even people checking with the power company were told that there was no transformer explosions or anything. It didn't come out till days later that that's actually what happened. In
Wow.
this case, the reports say that it wasn't that. It was a UFO that was causing these bright lights. And we even had somebody comment on the website saying, so they identified it as a meteorite, so not unidentified anymore. Why is this news? Well, the thing is, they didn't identify it as a meteorite. They
Hmm.
said that that's probably what it was. And those probablys, they can be a likely explanation, but they still aren't official 100% identifications. They're what
Yeah.
the experts say it probably was this, but it's still an unidentified object.
Yeah. See, and of course we love these because there's actual video of a phenomena
Right,
happening,
right.
and it seems like it would be something that would eventually have an easy explanation, but as it appears, it's
And I think people looking at this story too are also missing the fact that there appear to be two things going on here. Number one, an object in the sky, and then this explosion. And who's
hmm
to say that, a meteorite didn't crash and cause the explosion of the transformer? Who's also to say that it wasn't a meteorite, it was an alien spacecraft that crashed into the transformer and caused the explosion, or that the
hmm
multicolored explosion was because this object was extraterrestrial and it had all sorts of interesting elements in it and
hmm
was causing this crazy alien explosion. So there are
yeah.
a lot of possibilities here. We don't know what it was, but it makes for interesting video.
hmm Yeah, really cool.
All right, dude, what story are you going to talk about?
You know what? I wasn't going to, but this one's blown up, and I'm not completely sure why. I never do know why, and maybe you do. I looked. I don't. Someone must have linked to this story, but we're getting right as we speak. As you know, in the last few minutes, we've had even 400 more views to this story. But this one's gone crazy, and that's these three football field-sized UFOs that reported by witnesses in West Virginia, and it was essentially a few witnesses, 10 of them, working at a coal plant when they said they saw these football field uh, sized triangular shaped UFOs moving under 100 feet near their coal mine. They said the plant wasn't active, so it wasn't making any noises. But yeah, it's kind of just witness testimony case, no pictures or anything. These people talking about this craft that they saw, and it's blowing up.
It is. And, I mean, these have become kind of like buzzwords with the, UFO people in recent years, triangle shaped object and football field sized objects. We hear a lot of
Hmm.
reports about football field sized UFOs and of course triangle shaped UFOs. So I'm not entirely sure why this one is getting so much attention. I know it's gotten a lot of, uh, kind of uh, made people upset because they're all really you had these three football field sized UFOs and there were this group of guys and nobody pulled out their phone and took a picture of it. Kind of
Yeah,
silly.
Yeah, everybody's really flipping out about that. Yeah, no
Yeah,
pictures, no pictures, and which is a good point.
yeah.
It's interesting, but a couple other people have made some points in that they're uh, they're working. I don't know, that they might not have had their phones even if they could have got to one. Although it was 15 minutes of sightings, it's
It was 15
possible.
minutes, but it also was at 10 p.m. at night.
Right.
And as you know, you pull out your little phone there and take a
hmm
picture of a light in the sky. It's just going to look like a blob. So
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't get really anything with your cell at night. You'll just get lights. I mean, try
right.
to
So people will say, "Yeah, airplane. So what?"
yeah. I always tell people, even go to the airport and try to take a picture of a plane
Take a
as it's
picture of the moon.
landing. Yeah, take a picture of the moon, anything with your cell phone at night, even a lamp, and see how good that turns out. I mean, it's
Yeah, night
difficult.
photography is so difficult. So, and
Yep.
especially with cell phone cameras. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're awesome, but they're crappy at the same time.
hmm And they don't build tripods for cell phones yet.
That's right.
I want you to tell me a little bit, though, before we're done, about this story you posted today. Sounds really cool.
Yeah, so this is another exciting one, and I know you and I both really enjoy these reports that come out of near misses with airlines that have been investigated by this body in the UK called the UK Air Prox Board. They're a group that's tasked with reviewing near miss reports, and this is another case that happened in England where this passenger plane, an Airbus 320, so pretty standard airplane for most of your commercial flights, filled with people, and apparently passengers saw this too. But the plane was flying. It was starting its approach at the Manchester airport, and the pilots saw a flying man, what they described as a flying man, zipping through the sky and right past the plane. And and they were trying to figure out what it could possibly be. They initially thought it could be a paraglider, a hang glider, but they didn't see the canopy, they didn't see a parachute, they didn't see any of that. And they checked with air traffic control. The object didn't appear on radar. The Air Prox Board investigated. They ruled out paragliders, parachutists, or balloonists, and said even with the conditions at the time of the sighting, any of those were also unlikely. And a hang gliding and paragliding association, a spokesperson from a group there from the British Hang Gliding and Paragliding Association, commented and said that the conditions at the time also made it highly unlikely that there was a lone glider in the area. So the Air Prox Board investigated, and they couldn't identify it. They said it's possible that it was a human, a person-shaped balloon, and we've seen that with other sighting reports of humanoid UFOs. But they said with the conditions at the time that is also unlikely. So the Air Prox Board was unable to come up with an explanation for this sighting of this flying human.
Yeah, so cool. And
Pretty
they even
crazy.
it's funny
Yeah.
because they even said something what the guy says it's unfortunate that there wasn't enough information to lead to to identify the object, but so how weird.
It's really weird.
That's a cool
This,
story.
yeah, really cool story. And again, gotta love the Air Prox Board. Love that there's
Yeah.
this group looking into these near misses, because there are a lot of near misses. It's crazy,
Mhm.
and they're not able to identify these things. They're definitely posing a risk.
Yeah.
It's fortunate that there haven't been accidents, but these things are unidentified objects whizzing by these
Mhm.
giant airplanes.
Well, and
It's
typically even
crazy, and they can't figure out what these things are.
crazy, yeah. And what's cool about them too is that they do a full-on investigation, whereas a lot of these stories we report about are just anecdotal. Maybe a local paper will do a little bit of investigation. Maybe we'll be able to do a little bit. But these guys, do these full-on investigations before they release their reports. So they've checked everything. So
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's really valuable investigation. And I think as they get more of these near miss incidents that they investigate and can't identify, it demonstrates just the volume of these incidents that are happening. And
Yeah.
hopefully people will take note of that and realize that, hey, something's going on. We've got stuff flying around in the air that we can't identify.
Yeah, really exciting, really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Otherwise, of course, we've got a lot of other great sightings as far as visuals. Some interesting video from Wales that we wrote about, and essentially these three little guys floating around in the newspaper. Nobody could figure out what it was. It could be balloons glinting, floating around in the distance. Doesn't look like Chinese lanterns, so that's kind of an interesting one. A lot of identifieds, of course. Charlotte had something that was some guys or some planes flying in formation or something like that, but it made for some really cool video. And then another story, which is kind of funny, that created a lot of talk and people upset, was this German documentary that claimed that it was Nazi spy planes or Nazi spy or secret craft that crashed in Roswell, and that's what caused Roswell, and a lot of people upset over that. And I thought that was interesting, and I wanted to see what evidence they have because they were claiming this. But none of the stories about this thing really provide any link. They provide some evidence for possible secret craft that were being made by the Nazis that might have been taken over by the U.S., but they don't provide any link whatsoever to Roswell, or that it's definitively Roswell, or they knew of a test in the area that crashed. So the documentary's in German, so we don't have a whole lot on that. But that created a lot of debate. You probably saw some of that debate, Jason.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. People got a little heated. They got heated just that we even wrote about it. But, it's interesting and it pertains to the field, so I think it's something to keep an eye on. And there are a minority of people out there who did agree, actually, with the findings of the German documentary.
Right.
So to each their own. But we're looking for some evidence out there, you German documentary makers. So hopefully they'll provide that, or maybe we'll get some more information. If you speak German and you've seen this, or you live in Germany, let us know if there was some more evidence they provided that just some of these stories are not covering, or what you thought. Maybe you thought it was convoluted yourself. So let us know. All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing and joining us for the news, Mysterioso McClellan.
It is always the pleasure of Mysterioso to join you, Mr. Alejandro Thaddeus Rojas.
Mm-hmm. So now, you've got this is what Jason does. People don't know this. You wear a cape, and when the show's over, you spin, and you disappear in a poof of smoke.
I'm not so good at the disappearing yet. I've got smoke down, but it's coming along.
Mm-hmm. Well, you'll get there. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on and speak to Mr. Travis Walton. I am very excited to welcome Travis Walton back to the show. Hello, Travis.
Great to be here, Alejandro.
Yeah, it's so fun because we get to see each other a lot, but I think I've only had you on the show once, so it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yep.
A lot to tell.
Yeah, a lot going on.
When I give a talk, it's different every time because there's just no way to get it all into one talk. There's no talk long enough, time frame long enough for that.
Yeah. Well, and people have so many questions.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure
sometimes the Q&A goes on for forever.
Yeah.
Say, wrap it up. We got to go.
I mean, have you ever had a Q&A session that where people ran out of questions?
No, not usually. And if they do, they come up immediately afterwards and ask their questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they don't want to do it in front of you.
A lot of people are shy that way. Mm-hmm. So you have a conference, the Skyfire Summit, which is going to be held in about a month.
Yeah, we're down to about 2.5 weeks now.
Exactly, even less. So it's November 5th to the 7th, and so this is exciting, and that's what we're going to kind of talk about because you have a lot of really cool events. But what made you decide to put on a conference?
Well, I was just persuaded to. This guy wanted to back me on it, and he just kept pushing at it, and it just looked like a really big undertaking. But, I got to thinking about, how, once I'd given a talk at the local college here, and we had standing room only, that people in this area are really hungry to get the real facts, and and they need a kind of an education. So that's the thrust of the conference. The speakers I chose and the topics I assigned is designed to be kind of a foundation, the ground floor of sort of a ufology 101.
Okay, gotcha. Because there was kind of short notice for people, so it gets harder for people outside of the local area. However, your focus was kind of to let in your local community on what's going on, huh?
Yeah, for the kickoff here, we'll be probably doing it again on the anniversary next year. But I know it's kind of a late start, but it's taken off really good. We're
Good. And this year, so people know, it will be the 39th anniversary.
Yeah.
Of the event, and then next year will be the big 40th.
Yep, the big 40th.
So this is really exciting. One of the cool things going on with the conference, and for people to know, this is in the Heber area, so this is near where the events took place. And there are some events going on, early in the conference, including on the anniversary date, November 5th. That night, you're going to have a special event, a sky watch at the location where the abduction took place.
Yeah. Ben Hansen, host of the Sci-Fi Channel Fact or Fake.
Yeah.
And, he's got some telescopic night vision equipment, and it's going to be a first-class event. But I'm really kind of nervous about it because,
Really?
it'll be the first time I go back, on the site, and it'd be at night and stuff. I know I'll have 20 people with me, but...
So you haven't been back there at night before?
Well, certainly not anywhere near the time of the incident. I was there one time after dark with National Geographic, but other than that, I steer clear of there in the late evening.
Yeah. Well, I think I have talked to you about this before, but after the actual event took place, in the 70s, in 75, it had been many years, right, since you had returned to the actual location, even during the day.
Yeah. I avoided going there as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. What got you back? Was it a film crew or something?
Yeah, that's the thing. And there's safety in numbers, and I saw or the illusion of safety. And so, I went back under those circumstances.
How did it feel going back to the site?
Well, the weirdest one was when I went back after the forest fire had moved through. They closed out the woods and shut down the roads and didn't want anybody going in there. But as soon as it opened up, me and my son went out on my motorcycle. And strangely enough, right when we got to the Turkey Springs contract, the motorcycle just cut off like you'd turn the switch off. It wouldn't hit a lick. So I hid it in behind the bushes, and we just walked over to the site. And when I come back, the bike started right up, drove it home, and it's run fine ever since. Never done that again.
Wow, that's pretty weird.
Yeah, that was weird.
When people have gone back to investigate the site, have they found anything? Has there been any discoveries of?
Yeah, we did some follow-up. See, I mentioned the National Geographic. That was supposed to be some follow-up research. They were going to do this follow-up on those radiation readings, but they insisted on going with 2 feet of snow on the ground. So naturally, there's no radiation going to travel through 2 feet of snow. And they were supposed to follow up on the electromagnetic readings, and for some reason that didn't happen. And we took some samples that wound up never being taken to a lab. It was a really big disappointment because I had anticipated, because National Geographic does such great science and documentary work, that this was going to be the one time that we had some follow-up research. But that was a big mistake. But here recently, went back, and with the team, we did some follow-up research with Geiger counters and at some Gauss meters, some we were trying to see if the unusual magnetic readings were still there. And there was some interesting discoveries in this latest expedition.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in regard to the rapid tree growth that occurred in the trees nearest where the craft came down.
Mm-hmm. And so it was estimated that the growth increased after or during the event.
Well, counting back 15 years, because it wasn't the effect wasn't discovered until 15 years after the incident.
Mm-hmm.
But counting back 15 tree rings, there was an abrupt increase of the tree growth, up to 36 times the growth rate that had been in the previous 85 years in the tree that was sampled. So here's an 85-year-old tree that in 15 years doubles in diameter.
Mm-hmm.
And the outer rings encompass more volume than the inner rings because it's a bigger circle. So it was calculated out with some complex geometry that that tree was producing wood fiber at 36 times the rate it had previously.
Mm-hmm.
And one good thing that did come out of the National Geographic expedition was the discovery of a tree that had been logged the year before the incident. Mm-hmm. So that tree had never been growing during the presence of the craft. And there was a 200-year-old tree with very normal, regular growth rings going back 200 years, with no, anomalous thick rings. And so that just was a kind of a benchmark of the steadiness of the growth conditions right there on that ridgetop.
Oh, wow, yeah. So it's kind of a control.
Yeah, it was a control, to have that old of a tree. And luckily we discovered that on camera, with the National Geographic crew. So that documented that. And then in this last expedition, we discovered something really exciting. And this is the first time I've discussed this anywhere. When the core samples were originally taken, there was great care taken to avoid killing the trees. But since the forest fire had killed a lot of these trees, there was no harm in getting a complete cross-section. Mm-hmm. And something really remarkable was discovered. The tree growth was thickest in the direction of where the craft was. Now, the skeptics would say, well, a lot of things could make these trees suddenly grow better, but that doesn't happen. On the east side, it was, towards the craft. On the west side, it was in the opposite direction. On the south, it was in the direction of the craft. On the north, it was in the direction of the craft. So there was no kind of other condition, no other variable except the position of the craft relative to
Oh, you're kidding. So the rings on the side of the tree closest to the craft had the biggest effect.
Yeah, in all four directions. And that was a really exciting discovery because that just blows any kind of theory about other causes for this rapid growth because it's obviously totally directional to where the craft came down. Wow. And we took photographs very carefully. We put the compass by each of these places, each of these stumps on the 4 points of the compass, around the circle of where the craft had come down. And anyway, that was very exciting. And, this will be something we'll be able to show the people that come to the early Skywatch because, it'll still be light when we first arrive.
Yeah, I can't tell you how excited we are. We're going to be there. We're going to film it and document the whole thing. We are so excited. Now, is the wood pile still there?
Oh, no, the forest fire, actually, the forest fire changed everything dramatically. And the log pile that was there, the purpose of that pile was to burn it as soon as the ground was covered with snow. So I'm sure that happened the very next opportunity that they had during wet conditions to burn up this extra material because that was the goal in that strip through there that we were working on that day was to reduce the fuel for any potential forest fire coming across that ridge.
Now, this just comes to mind. One of the excuses from the skeptics, or one of the things that people say about the whole event, is that they kind of explain, if I get this right, and you probably have heard this many times, and just it'd be interesting to hear your take on it. The whole idea that it was your brother's company, and you needed to make money.
Oh, okay. You're talking about the contract motive theory. Well,
yeah. And
yeah,
what
it
is
was my
the theory?
brother. It was my brother-in-law, and it was his contract.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no contract motive, and this whole theory was laid out before all the different Forest Service contracting officers over that contract. And those guys actually signed an affidavit saying there was absolutely no way this incident could benefit them. There is no active God clause in a contract that will get you out of it to where you're going to be paid your money anyway. It had no effect on that. And on top of that, Mike never, during the default proceedings that occurred because the contract had, defaulted because...
Was that your cell phone? Sounds
Yeah.
like a cool ring.
Yeah, anyway.
So they were saying that you're trying to get out of the contract, but like you said, there was no benefit to getting out of the contract.
Yeah, and Mike never even brought it up during the default proceedings. So, it was just, and see, the theory was offered much later after the default proceeding. So if there had been anything to it, he certainly would have, made that argument at the default proceedings, but there was absolutely no substance to it whatsoever. Yeah. And I go into great detail in the book about that, but probably the most conclusive thing there is the testimony of the contracting officers who didn't believe the truth of the incident, but they said there's no way the contract could figure into why it would be be happening.
So that's funny. So they said, well, we're not so sure the event took place, but this wasn't a motive
right.
for it.
This makes no sense as a motive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, totally ridiculous.
So another thing, then the next day, so that's Wednesday. That's going to be a ton of fun. And as far as you know, I mean, are there a lot of sightings in that area?
Well, I've certainly, get people tend to report them more to me, so I don't know if they're more common. But even at the time, right after it happened, the sheriff took a whole number of reports from hunters and campers that were in the area that saw, objects that they described just like what we saw. That and wrote up a report and gave it to the sheriff. So who knows whether people were paying more attention and therefore seeing more of it, or there was more activity at that time. But there does seem to be a preference for this kind of activity in remote areas.
Mm-hmm. Wow, pretty cool. I can't wait for you to see. I think we've talked about this, but at our conference we're going to have the Allagash guys who had an abduction experience in a remote area in Maine, and I think you're really going to like that. You're going to have to check their talk out.
Yeah.
But
maybe next year I can have them come and speak at this conference.
Yeah, that's a great idea because you'll meet him. You'll probably hit it off because, a lot of people don't know because you're kind of a more quiet guy that you do have a sense of humor and that you can't be. And these guys are pretty funny guys too. They have a good sense of humor. So I think you'll probably hit it off with them, but that's a great idea.
Yeah, you can't cry. You may as well laugh,
Yeah. Speaking of the sheriff, then the next day on November 6th, you're going to be taking people to the courthouse where the sheriff and some of the crew members, the original witnesses...
Yeah, that was the plan, but the sheriff kind of got cold feet and backed out of it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's the way it goes.
Son of a...
Yeah, and I know why, Publicly, he maintains a skeptical stance, and privately, those around him tell me that he's actually much more believing than he lets on.
Oh, really? So how has your relationship over the years been with him? Kind of up and down?
No, I've never been negative with him. I've always
Uh-huh.
admired him as a man of integrity,
Yeah.
and I understand that his skepticism has a lot to do with the difficulty of being in an elected position.
Mm-hmm.
But he's always behaved very ethically.
Mm-hmm. So he just kind of got cold feet because he doesn't want to come out and speak publicly as if he believes the whole thing.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of his political allies in the county are skeptical. Here's another factor.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these lawmen are so, proud to be portrayed by somebody like a Western icon like James Garner.
Yeah.
And James Garner comes off as a skeptic in the movie.
Yeah.
And so when I saw Gillespie recently, I told him, Gillespie, James Garner was very believing off camera. And so, he needs to understand that he's identifying with a fictional character, not the real James Garner.
Right, exactly. That's such a bummer. That's it. And I mean, it's made him famous. I mean, when you have James Garner playing you, James Garner's such an incredible actor, such a great guy.
Yeah. Who passed away recently.
Right, right. But I mean, all the actors in the movie were really good actors who have moved on to be pretty famous, except for, I guess, were we talking about the lead, the guy who played you? He hasn't done much, really, huh?
Well, he's in this really talked about movie right now, and that's Sharknado, the whole Sharknado series.
Oh, Sharknado, yeah. That's right.
I was really slamming that movie, and then I found out that he's in it. But you got to get the joke. It's definitely making fun of making fun,
Yeah. And what was his name again, that actor?
D.B. Sweeney, yeah.
D.B. Sweeney, that's right. So
yeah, I invited him to the conference, and his agent said he would have come, but he's going to be making another movie, so they didn't name the movie. But
hopefully next year then.
Yeah, I met the guy that created the character Spawn, and he gave me a bunch of comic book memorabilia and stuff. And then I was flipping through the channels one night, and I saw that movie Spawn. I go, oh, that's cool. So I started watching it, and then D.B. Sweeney was in that movie.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and you probably met him because you go to the Comic-Cons.
Yeah, I
was
at Comic-Con.
Uh-huh.
Comic-Con, the one in San Diego, California. Yeah.
So, is there still going to be a courthouse event at all?
Yes, yeah, that's still going to happen.
Okay, great. And so, some of the witnesses will be there?
I haven't talked to them yet, but I'm sure they will be.
Well, some of them, or do all of them still live in the area?
Some of them do, the ones that are still alive.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, all but one.
Oh, really?
Is moved back here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's really cool. So, and then, I know we had a couple of them. You brought a couple of them to the UFO Congress a couple years ago. Thus far, has that been the biggest gathering of the witnesses so far? Just when you three of you?
And even that Sci-Fi Channel series, Paranormal Witness. Mm-hmm. They did the very best documentary that's been done out of the dozens over the years. And they got more of the people involved interviewed in that documentary than ever before. But we weren't together. Those were done in separate states. Steve was interviewed in California and far off places. But it's amazing, how, in spite of the fact none of us even were around when the other was being interviewed, you can just see how, powerfully it's affected all of us after all this time.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that maybe we'll be able to raid the sheriff's office or home? We can all go by there and say, hey.
We'll get a letter writing campaign, tell people.
Yeah.
But, when you do see that paranormal witness thing, and then he's sitting there acting skeptical, and the polygraph examiner is saying, I'll stake my reputation that these guys are telling the truth. And, but really it's seeing the incredibly powerful emotions that are coming out of people after 38 years,
mm-hmm.
And then to have Bixby turn around and say, well, I don't believe it, makes him seem kind of silly in that show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of people just, I've been, places where it was shown, and you can hear people just snorting in derision when he says stuff like that.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes people wonder, how in the world can you think like that?
Yeah. Which reminds me, when you talk about the emotion, because I don't know if we haven't even talked, I don't think, about this on the show together, as of course we were on Keeping Up with the Kardashians together, and we went out to Area 51 with them, and there are, even when we were out there, and I guess it was a very intimate setting in that we were in the camper with them, and they were just, the girls were just all lovely people, and I don't mean attractive. Well, they're which they are, but I mean they were just really nice and sweet, and it seemed to elicit emotion in you more so than I've seen in the past.
Yeah, well, I picked up a really authentic family-oriented affection amongst them,
Mm-hmm.
In spite of the things people say about them. I really picked up that that was a genuine feeling they have for each other.
Yeah. I was really shocked in the negativity. I got so many people saying, "Oh, I can't believe you would do that. Those guys are awful." And it's like, they're people like anyone else. Why wouldn't I want to go talk to them if they're interested? Did you have a lot of people telling you that too?
Oh, yeah, I got a whole ton of email, especially slamming Bruce for being negative. But what they don't realize is, the most positive stuff was cut out,
Mm-hmm.
I was talking with his sons, Brandon, Brody, that, we were going to jam around the campfire, and Bruce was giving me training advice about my training for the 100 meters, and all that positive stuff got cut out. And then they take Bruce back to the studio and set him in front of a curtain and film a bunch more insults. So, it was trying to stay in keeping with the reality show theme of conflict, Bruce wanted to go fishing, and here the vacation was, in his words, being wasted on a trip to Area 51. But, in reality, to misuse the word again, it wasn't really as negative as people thought, or it was made to appear, because reality shows the lifeblood of a reality show is conflict, and most of it's invented.
Yeah. And I mean, what I found from watching the show, and I'd love to hear your feedback, was one of the aspects of the show that I found really endearing was the girls going to bat for you. Because I think I told you this, but later on, Bruce Jenner actually started to talk to you, and you guys had great conversation and everything. And I thought I was the one who did that, because I'm like, I'm going to talk to him. If I talk to Bruce, I'm going to tell him he's got to talk to Travis. Because the whole time going up there, or when we were even, in Vegas the night before, you had talked about how, you're a big fan of his. And so when I said hi to him, I said, Travis is a big fan, it'd be great if you guys could talk about sports and stuff. And I felt so great because you got into that conversation. And little did I know, the girls had been going to their dad and saying, hey, you're being a jerk, and quit being a jerk, and you need to talk to him because he thinks you're great. And that was really cool that the girls did that.
Yeah, they did, and I think it was Brody's wife, or anyway, Leah, is that her name?
Yeah,
the blonde
Leah.
one. Yeah, she was extremely nice. Yeah, she was
Yep. Luckily, my girlfriend doesn't listen to the radio show very much, but she was so sweet that I developed a little bit of a crush on her, I gotta admit.
Yeah, I really liked her. Oh, and coincidentally,
and Brody, or no, not Brody, Brandon,
yeah.
He was really cool. Brody, I think, was drunk the whole time. He only wandered in a couple of times. He seemed wasted, but
yeah, he was kind of drunk. He said something kind of drunk sounding.
Yeah, he did. But Brandon was so nice, just like Leah. They were just the coolest people. And people make fun of me because I talk about how nice they were, but they were.
Yeah, they were. And I'll call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
Just like I'll stick up for the sheriff and town marshal for the places where it's warranted.
Yeah, which I think is really cool too, because it actually you came up. I was talking with Nancy Burns, who runs UFO magazine last week, and you came up because she was talking about what Ben Hansen calls legendizing, which is where a lot of times experiencers, whether that just be a sighting or taking a photograph or more, they'll have a real event happen, and then they want to perpetuate this legend that they've created for themselves, and so they make stuff up. And it's almost like marketing themselves. And that's something you never do. I mean, for instance, you defending skeptics is not something that, for marketing purposes, a lot of people will attack them because they'll be like, yo, you're hurting my whole story here and my whole marketability of my story. But you don't do that because, and to me, that lends to the credibility of the whole thing.
Yeah, you got to call them how you see them, And
yeah. Yep. And
I want them to be fair to me, so I'll be fair to them.
Yeah. And speaking of reality and conflict, when it comes to some of the witnesses and the crew, there is a little bit of conflict and stuff there. And so when it comes to the people who are going to be at the courthouse for this event, are there some people who have opted out because of controversy, or have you been really open to any of the guys who want to come can come?
Yeah, any of them could come. But Steve is probably the most erratic. He goes from being really wanting to, do as many interviews as he can to here recently. He said, "I'm retiring. I'm never going to talk about this again." And then just about 3 days ago, he called me up and was talking about it again. So,
He's a funny guy. I mean, I ran into him many, many times, and he talks my ear off. And he's it's weird. I would say he's a nice guy.
Yeah. I mean, well, he was
in
great.
A way, he's personable and everything.
Yeah.
But then, there's just this wild stuff starts to come out of his mouth, and it's really, you don't know what to make of it.
Well, that's what we were talking about just a minute ago. This whole celebrity thing can go to a person's head, and that's what happened to him. Unfortunately, he was intoxicated by the attention. Yeah. After having so much flack and negative about this incident for so many years, he comes into the UFO scene, and he's so well received that it just kind of like I said, he became intoxicated by it, and he couldn't get enough.
Well, and I think the first time he spoke was at the UFO Congress when we had you all there, and he was so quiet. He was almost even kind of shy when he was speaking there.
Right, but he did a fine job.
He did a great job. People loved it.
First time, a few times out, it was uncolored or unslanted by any, envy of me. But, gradually that's the feeling that sort of took over for him. So.
Yeah, it then changed because the next time I saw him, he's going on and on about stuff. And
yeah, and, to the point where he's actually making up stuff to try to drag me down. Like the story about me chasing the bear. He calls up and says, "Oh, that bear was so far away that it wouldn't have been anything that, you needed to worry about." The truth was, Steve wasn't there that day.
Oh, so, really?
So, those are the kinds of things. And then he changes his story. He was saying that he thought that the aliens were waiting for me, that they wanted me. And that was his original story. And then all of a sudden, next time he's interviewed, he said, well, the reason they got Travis is because he was the weak link. He was more susceptible to their mind control than the rest of us. So he was trying to say he was superior to me because they couldn't make him get out of the truck, but they made me get out,
Which is kind of funny because I have a theory, my own personal little theory. You've heard this one before too, and I'm pretty sure I've shared it with you. That it seems that just the opposite. You seem to be, because your experience was different when you're on the craft, and they were. You didn't have a telepathic communication experience.
Well, no, but I really think that I believe in the existence of telepathy, but I think that when that energy hit me in the head, that it injured my brain in a way that made me kind of a bad receiver of some kind.
Yeah, or maybe you already were. I mean, just like now, it seems like some people are more attuned and have more skills that way than others do.
Well, that's an interesting possibility. I'd
Yeah.
never thought of that. But see, the EEG, the brain scan that I had right afterward, detected an unusual pattern. And I always thought, well, maybe that was because the energy hit me, but you that maybe that was there all along.
Yeah, some of us are just thick-headed. I think I'm in the
And
same boat.
maybe they found that interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be. That very well could be. So that ought to be fun. So they'll still will. Another thing that you're going to have that day then is Matthew Barger. Is that how you say it? The newspaper son, newspaper owner's son.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so, what is he going to talk about?
Well, he's had a kind of an overview of the reporting on this over the years and the articles that have been published in his paper, and of course national media, bombarding them with questions and looking for sources and stuff. So that'll be interesting to see what Matthew says.
Yeah, that's going to be really cool. That's going to be a lot of fun. And man, I hope the sheriff shows up, and maybe we'll send him an email and see if he'll at least let us do a little short interview.
Yeah.
Just like a couple minute questions or something. So that'll be fun. And then, so that's Wednesday and Thursday, and that's before the event even begins. And then the actual beginning of everything is the next day. What is that? Friday on the?
Yeah, Friday. Friday evening we have dinner with the speakers, and we're going to have some live music there, and a surprise guest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I should talk about him on the radio. I'd have to get his permission, but it's somebody most people would recognize.
Yeah, well, let's keep the mystery then.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. So, but it is someone most people would recognize.
I would think so. And, it surprised me because Monday he actually offered to perform some of his songs when he's there.
Well, it can't be Tracy Torme's dad because he's passed away, right?
Yeah. You know what? Tracy is actually a very good singer.
Really?
Yeah. His brother has some albums out, but, Tracy himself can sing. He just never pursued it.
Mm-hmm. And just for people who may not know, Tracy Torme was the movie's director, who is Mel
screenwriter.
Torme's screenwriter. I'm sorry,
yeah.
Screenwriter, who is Mel Torme's son. And a lot of people, I'll still hear this sometimes that that dang Tracy Torme changed everything. And
no, he was not responsible
right.
for that. That was against his wishes too.
Yeah, he was very upset about it, right?
Oh yeah, and he'd written for Saturday Night Live and Star Trek TV series too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he didn't like the changing of the script.
No, as a matter of fact, his dispute over the changes they were making led to him actually walking off the set there towards the end, and they hired somebody else to make some dialogue changes because that's the way these things kind of go. There's always creative differences, and the higher up the food chain you go, the more people will get preempted. And I've stories about Michael Crichton and some of the big writers like Stephen King, them all walking off the set of their movies. That their books are made into movies because of that kind of stuff. You're destroying my product here, but nobody's going to listen to them. And I almost got barred from the set myself because of my complaints about
really
stations. Yeah. Actually I heard that the director was vetoing my coming, and it was only Joe Wazan, another producer, that we were there really on his invitation.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to spend a week on the set, which was very interesting.
Mm-hmm. And so some of the speakers you're going to have are Stan Friedman, Richard Dolan. This is kind of neat. You have kind of a set.
Don Schmidt, Linda Howe.
And then you're going to have a set of Native American speakers. You're going to have Clifford Mahooey.
Two Navajo policemen that have investigated a number of incidents on the reservation, and Clifford Mahooey, who had his own personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as far as in my initial objective of having a foundation across the broad spectrum of the various areas of ufology, including the Native American and the ancient alien sort of approach, because there are petroglyphs in the canyon outside of Snowflake here that looks just like a flying saucer and aliens, and these things cannot be faked because there's a patina that takes hundreds of years to form once this has been carved into the rock. And so that was pretty impressive. And there was a TV show that was going to come and do an episode about those petroglyphs, but I think the show got canceled before they got going on that.
Mm-hmm. You also have Kathleen Martin talking about Betty and Barney Hill, Peter Robbins talking about Rendlesham Forest, and Tom Reed talking about his abduction experiences.
Yeah, a multi-generational sort of family series of ongoing experiences over the years. Very well documented case. Really interesting. It's got some connections with political figures in the United Nations and whatnot, and so. That's been a story that's been in existence for many years, but it's just now being discovered and just now coming out.
Now, your talk says it's going to be the Sitgreaves Forest incident of 1975. Is that your?
Well, yeah.
Just a new name for it.
Yeah, these people that are writing this stuff, I'm not the direct author of a lot of this material, but I've got a great organizational team. Really have been a huge help to me. I don't think I could have pulled this off alone, that's for sure.
Yeah. And it's cool because Ben Hansen, you meet with quite a bit, right? And have you done? I think you've done some other investigation with him in the area.
Yeah, he supervised the return to the site to do the follow-up research, and he provided the instrumentation and whatnot. So
yeah,
that'll be coming out in a documentary that part of my team is producing.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Cool. So, okay, gotcha. Now I know what that documentary is. Can I mention who's putting it together?
Yeah.
Jennifer Stein, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she filmed me for it, so hopefully she uses that and I can be in it. That'd be great.
Yeah, cool.
But she's great. Jennifer Stein is so cool. She's so organized and
that's a worker. Good grief.
Yeah, my gosh, a hard worker, a really sweet, nice, intelligent person, and she did the Disclosure Dialogue videos as well.
Yeah, well, this could be her magnum opus. She's really putting a lot into trying to make a really high quality. We've even got the opportunity to include Dwayne Smith because I recorded an interview with him before he died. And
who is that?
Dwayne Smith, one of the crewmen. He really hasn't been in any interviews, even the Paranormal Witness one, all these years because he just moved out of the area and couldn't find him.
Yeah. Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, she's
so
she's
I had a former police officer friend of mine track him down from the state where he was last known to be living, and then that police officer got this private detective friend of his, and so we finally found him, and so I had this conversation. Must have been some kind of intuition because it wasn't too long, and I couldn't get through on the phone. Sent the private detective back and found out that he had passed away last Thanksgiving.
Oh, no. Are there any of the witnesses who just refuse to talk to anybody at this point?
No, not consistently, Ken has done interviews, and he's done several, but he's also very shy. But he was in Paranormal Witness, and he doesn't refuse to. He's just,
just shy.
Yeah, not eager to get out there.
Yeah.
Even
so for
Dwayne,
the
when I talked to Dwayne Smith, he says, "Okay, I'll come out and do interviews." He says, "But I've really got some problems with my teeth. I want to get them taken care of before I can go on camera." He says, "I don't want to look like Bubba."
That reminds me of, I guess now that we got to wrap it up, I know you got to go. The tree effect, it goes to another. I have a lot of theories about your case, obviously. Well, I get to spend a lot of time with you, so we come up with
Ben
these
Hansen
things.
discovered a scientific paper that was published about the Scots pines that were growing near Chernobyl, and it was discovered that radiation was making those trees grow
Really?
3 times faster.
Mm-hmm.
And he just sent me that paper yesterday, so that'll be a part of his presentation at the Skyfire Summit.
Well, my theory was, I told you about this, I think, when we were camping a couple weeks ago, that your youthful appearance is a bit of an anomaly, I think. Because how old are you now?
I'm 61.
Yeah, you're 61. You look at maybe 50, maybe. I think you could probably even pass for mid-40s or something. But so I was saying that, maybe the proof will come when you outlive everybody. You live to be 150 years old. And, that then it'll really...
Well, some people exaggerate and say I haven't aged at all, but that's not true. But, I think I don't know. I try to take care of myself. It could just be a coincidence.
Mm-hmm. And then this part we can edit out because if you want, but I want to ask because, you spoke recently in New Mexico, and one writer wrote that you obviously had some work done on your face and you dye your hair.
No, I have not had any plastic surgery. But,
Did you hear about that, what that guy wrote?
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah.
No, it's not true.
Yeah, it's hilarious because I was like, no, that's not true at all. And but obviously,
I'll tell you what, the most snide comments I get are from my contemporaries, my classmates, people who are supposed to be my age.
Yeah.
So those are the people
they're jealous.
Jealousy,
Yeah. Well, maybe the aliens helped you out in that respect, but yeah, that's what's funny is I think what's interesting is that guy, felt that you were so youthful in appearance that, that for your age that, wow, he had to have had work done. He has to be dyeing his hair when those things are not the case. So my theory may prove true that, you'll outlive everyone and that will be
it's kind of the syndrome that you see in the gym. Every time somebody actually achieves any kind of results working out, then they claim they're on some kind of performance-enhancing drug. And it really irks people who have worked so hard to improve their body and then have people just dismiss it all. And even women that have a very good figure, women who are jealous and overweight will say, oh, well, she's obviously had breast enhancement or something, And it's just the jealousy syndrome.
Yeah. Funny. All right. Well, I'm so excited to go to your conference. This is going to be a lot of fun. People can go to skyfiresummit.com to read more and to register. We'll have a link at our website, and I'm going to write a story. Actually, it'll probably come out before this even airs. So to promote the event and to get people out there, because this is really historic, especially the Skywatch is pretty historic. The public being able to go out there and possibly all have a mass abduction together.
Well, I hope not, but maybe they'll see something.
Yeah, maybe we'll see something at least. At least we'll have fun and hang out, and it'll be extremely interesting and educational. Thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Yeah, it was great to be here.
Thank you so much to Travis for joining us. Last week, like I said, Friday, I wrote a story about the Skyfire Summit. You can go there and see some more information about checking out his conference or the Skywatch. Also, if you're not very familiar, if you're like, holy crap, who is this guy? If you're not familiar with his case, if you go to our story at openminds.tv, it's on the front page right now. We also have embedded Travis's talk recently at the UFO Congress. It's about 3 years ago, I think he did the talk. But anyways, we've put that up online for free where he recounts all of what happened, including what happened that he remembers on the craft with some great artwork that some people have provided to him. So if you've seen the movie Fire in the Sky, but you really want to know what the real deal is, then go watch this video. You can find it on YouTube as well at the Open Minds TV YouTube. or just go to openminds.tv, check out the story, and you'll be able to watch that video there as well. If you want to go to the summit, the URL is skyfiresummit.com. Like Travis says, this is coming up really quick. It's just in about 3 weeks. So many of you probably haven't heard of it before because they've only been marketing it for about a month as well. So not a lot of room for some of the events like the Skywatch, so you want to get in there really quick if you want to go. But yeah, great. Thank you so much. It's great to talk to Travis, and he's just a lot of fun. And I know, it's such a wild story, and I know a lot of people, I got a lot of comments, have a hard time swallowing this whole thing. But I've known Travis for years, and I just feel this case is incredible. Speaking about incredible cases, though, everybody loves the Travis Walton case. People are searching online. We find people coming to our site a lot because they're looking for Travis Walton. But at the UFO Congress this year, we have a case that I think is just as incredible. And the witnesses are just as credible. It's just kind of like, these are just some guys, some regular guys this happened to. Just like Travis. One of the things you meet Travis, he's a humble, regular guy. It's obvious this guy was really someone, cutting logs for years, and you just get that sense of authenticity. And that's the case with these two gentlemen we're going to have who had similar experiences in Maine. And I think this is an absolute incredible case. It's also one of my favorite, mainly because you meet the witnesses and they're just so credible, let alone some of the details of the case, such as all of these guys being regressed separately and having similar memories and details. So the Allagash case is going to be featured at the UFO Congress. We're going to have Jim Weiner and Chuck Foltz, who were two of the four people that were taken during this abduction experience, and they've had some interesting effects in their life. But these guys are great. Meeting them and talking with them, you're just like, wow, these are regular guys. This is the real deal. So check out the UFO Congress this year. Again, I always tell people, make sure and go book your room as soon as possible. The website for the conference center, it's called the Wikipaw Resort now at Fort McDowell. It was a Radisson at Fort McDowell, but it's this incredibly beautiful resort. The links, there's been problems as they've transferred from the reservation taking over the location from Radisson. And so it's been hard for people to get a room online. However, the new link for reserving a room is up. If you go to the UFO Congress, you'll find it. And it's a great link, actually. It's easier than the Radisson one. You click there. It makes it really easy to reserve a room at the discounted price for our conference. And, of course, for the conference, the rooms are about half price. I mean, $100 a night for what is a, top-notch, beautiful resort. I mean, we're getting like half off, if not more than half off for these rooms. So it's a great deal for the rooms. So go reserve your room, and then be sure to go to the Congress, because we're going to have these amazing talks, including, the Allagash abduction guys. So you can see more about that at ufocongress.com. We have a new spacing out that we just posted. One of our new buddies, Garrett Wang. We met him in Roswell. And he's was Officer Kim, or I don't know if he's an officer. He's Ensign Kim. I think Ensign Kim on Voyager, one of my favorite characters on Voyager. I liked Voyager. It was a cool show with Kate Mulgrew and everything. But it was a real treat to meet him. And Jason interviewed him recently and talked about his UFO sighting. So that's on Spacing Out, along with, of course, other great cases that happened in the last week or so that we cover, and that's on our YouTube at Open Minds TV. So we've got a lot of cool stuff going on there. It's busy, 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 so come check it out. And that is all. Like I said, we're going to be at the Sci-Fi Summit, so hopefully we'll see you there. And I might be going by Paula's conference. Paula Harris Star Works is having a conference as well. But I hope you all have a wonderful week. Thank you all so much for joining us. I want to thank Caleb Hakes for the opening and close music. You can find him at Clerk Chronicles. I want to thank PSN Networks for playing our show. You can find links to all of these guys on the radio page at openminds.tv. But thank you all, of course, as usual, for listening. It's so much fun hanging out with you every week, and we're going to have another really good show. We had Pat Frasconia, the lawyer who was representing the Rendlesham guys. Well, now we're going to have the Rendlesham guy in question himself, John Burroughs, one of the witnesses, and all the issues he's had getting his medical records and how they're supposedly classified and they won't give them to him. They had to go to McCain. Really interesting story that's developing in that the government is not giving him